Today we have what might be the most compressed story in this whole series. It is 3 verses long. It features a king, a sword, a baby, and 2 women. And it is one of the most famous scenes in the entire Bible, one that has been reproduced in paintings, in sculpture, in literature, in law, because it seems to reveal something essential about justice and about love, the judgment of Solomon. And we're reading it today through the framework of Melanie Klein, one of the most original, most controversial, and most influential figures in the history of psychoanalysis. Melanie Klein was born in Vienna in 1882 and spent most of her working life in London, where she became the central figure of what became known as the British School of Object Relations. She took Freud's basic framework and pushed it earlier, further back into infancy, into the first weeks and months of life, into a period that Freud had largely left unexplored. And what she found there was, by any measure, extraordinary. Klein argued that the infant's inner world is extraordinarily rich and extraordinarily turbulent. From the very beginning, the infant experiences intense love and intense rage, intense gratification and intense frustration, and has not yet developed the psychological capacity to integrate these extremes. The world is split. There is the good breast, the mother who feeds and soothes and is perfectly present, and the bad breast, the mother who is absent, frustrating and persecuting. The infant cannot yet experience these as the same person. They are 2 separate figures, one loved and idealized, and one hated and feared. Klein called this earliest mode of experience the paranoid-schizoid position. The word position is important. It is not a stage that you pass through and leave behind. It is a mode of relating that remains available throughout life, something you can slip back into under stress. Its hallmark is splitting. Things are either all good or all bad. People are either entirely safe or entirely threatening. There is no gray area. And then, if development goes well, the infant makes one of the most profound psychological moves of its life. It begins to recognize that the good mother and the bad mother are the same person, that the one it loves and the one it has in fantasy attacked and destroyed in its rage are one. And with this recognition comes what Klein calls the depressive position. The depressive position is not depression in the clinical sense. It is the capacity for a particular kind of sadness, the sadness that comes from recognizing that the object of your love is also the object you have harmed. It involves guilt, concern, and crucially, the impulse toward what Klein called reparation, the desire to make good, to restore, to repair the damage one has caused. This capacity for reparation, this willingness to feel the guilt of loving imperfectly and to try to make it right, is for Klein the foundation of genuine love. And it is, more broadly, the foundation of ethical life. Now, hold all of this in mind and look at the story of Solomon's judgments. 2 women come before the king. They live in the same house. They both gave birth, 3 days apart, to sons. One of the babies died in the night. The mother lay on him in her sleep, and each woman claims the living child as her own. The first woman says, "This woman's child died, and she arose in the night and took my son while I was sleeping, and laid her dead child beside me." The second woman says, "No, the living child is mine, and the dead child is yours." Solomon says, "Bring me a sword." And when the sword is brought, he said, "Divide the living child into 2 and give half to one and half to the other." The first woman says, "Please, Lord, give her the living child, and by no means put him to death." The second woman says, "He shall be neither mine nor yours, divide him." And Solomon says, "Give the living child to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." The surface interpretation is clear. Solomon is clever. The true mother reveals herself by being willing to lose the child rather than see it harmed. The false mother reveals herself by preferring destruction to loss. But Klein takes us somewhere deeper. What is the psychological difference between these 2 women? Klein would say one of them is the paranoid schizoid position, the other is in the depressive position. The woman who says divide him, she is operating entirely in a mode of possession and rivalry. The child is an object to be had or not had. If she cannot have him, neither can her enemy. The child's actual life, his actual existence as a separate being, does not register. He is a token in a contest. Her relationship to him is entirely in the mode of having. The woman who says give him to her, she has made the move into a depressive position. She can bear her own loss in order to protect the child's life. She can hold both things at once, my love for him and his separate existence, which has value beyond my possession of him. She is capable of reparation in the deepest sense, not repairing a specific harm she has caused, but enacting the principle of reparation as the foundation of how she relates. I will not destroy what I love, even if I cannot have it. Klein argued that this capacity, the capacity to put the well-being of the loved object above one's own need, is the mark of mature love. And it is extraordinarily difficult to achieve because the paranoid schizoid pull is always present. The pull to possess, to control, to prefer destruction to the loss of control is not a pathology. It is a permanent feature of the human psyche that must be continually worked against. There is something else in the story that Klein would find significant: Solomon's method. He does not ask the women to prove themselves. He does not bring in witnesses. He does not conduct an investigation. He presents them with a situation in which the truth will be revealed not by what they say, but by what they do, by how they respond to the ultimate threat to the child's existence. This is, in a sense, a psychological test. And what it is testing is precisely the capacity for the depressive position. Can you bear to lose what you love in order to protect what you love? The answer reveals not just the identity of the mother, but the quality of the love. Because biological motherhood, in Klein's framework, does not automatically produce the kind of love that can bear loss. The capacity for depressive position love that is genuinely oriented towards the other's well-being, is developed through a particular kind of psychological work. And the woman who says divide him has not done that work, or has been overwhelmed in this moment by something rawer and more primitive. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that this story, like many stories in the Bible, raises questions that we cannot fully answer. Who was the second woman? Was she also a mother, grieving her own lost child? Was her claim driven by the same desperate love, twisted by loss into something unrecognizable? Klein would say, yes, possibly, and this is important. The paranoid schizoid position is not simply wickedness, it is the psychology of overwhelm, of unprocessed grief, of a loss that cannot be tolerated. The woman who says divide him may have loved her son, may still love him, but in this moment, that love has curdled into something that cannot distinguish between possession and care. And this is one of the most painful truths about human relationships. Love that has not been able to develop the capacity for loss. Love that is too frightened to risk the separateness of the beloved can become destructive, can prefer the harm of what it loves to the risk of losing it. Klein's whole work was, in a sense, about this, about how human beings develop or fail to develop the capacity to love in a way that can bear the reality of the other's separate existence, that can sustain guilt without collapsing into punishment, that can feel the impulse to repair. The first mother in Solomon's court demonstrates this in the most extreme possible way. She is willing to have nothing, to walk out of the king's court with empty arms, rather than allow what she loves to be destroyed. This is the depressive position. This is reparation. This is, Klein would say, the foundation of everything we mean when we use the word love.